Right, so today's review is for another one of what I'd think of as mainstream fiction. I read it several years ago. I found it deeply forgettable, and in fact I had completely forgotten it until someone liked my review on Goodreads and that reminded me of it. I'll forget it again in a couple of months, I have no doubt. The title is The Truth About You, and it's written by someone called Susan Lewis. I assume she's an English writer. The Sunday Times considers her a best-selling author. All I can say is that this is not her target audience. So we start off. So I like cover art. A lot of people say you shouldn't judge its book by its cover, but cover art is its own thing. It's like, who can look at a Terry Pratchett and not think that artwork is amazing? Anyone who loves classic sci-fi like I do, cover art is a thing. The cover art on this looks like it was taken from a stock photo by someone who not only had not read the book, but hadn't even bothered to read the short review of it. I don't know what publishers use for these book covers usually. It's got a woman who bears no resemblance to any character in the book, staring wistfully, and oh look, I posted the cover that I read on the beginning of the review. It's so meh, so blah. No wonder I forgot it. So the main character in this book is Lainey. She's an English middle-class mother and housewife, also works to sustain her husband's successful writing career. She has a comfortable life with all the accoutrements of success, as seen by middle class, comfortably well off, husband, family, house, the right sort of car. I imagine she's got those thick pastel carpets that I find so despicable, but actually in England they do make a bit of sense because it's colder. Her mother immigrated from Italy when she was a baby and refused to tell Lainey anything about her past or family, so Lainey has only yearned to go back to Italy and find out the truth. It's obviously never occurred to Lainey that maybe there isn't the truth. Maybe her mother just didn't like living there. Maybe she wasn't close to her family. Maybe there's nothing to tell. I don't know anything much about my grandparents' history. Does it mean that there's some horrible secret? No, it means they walked away from it and they don't care. But Lainey is too dumb to think about that. Lainey's husband, Tom, has always been beside her the whole way. So she books tickets, and just after she books tickets, her husband hits her with a bombshell that could wreck their marriage. Insert dramatic drum roll. But she goes anyway to discover but the terrible, terrible truth must be waiting for her. Spoilers, it's not. From the 2 stars that I gave this review and my sarcasm, I think anyone reading the Goodreads review or listening to this one realizes that this book did not rock my world. So several things about it bothered me, and the non-spoilers include the fact that the publishers must have been on a terrible budget to produce that cover. The cover, because they can't have read anything of it, not even the first 3 pages. Lainey is clearly described as an Italian woman with dark hair, fiery temper, though having told us that she's got a fiery temper, we see nothing but a weepy, whiny willow for the rest of the book, which also bothers me significantly. So no thick black curly hair, no dark eyes, and no Mediterranean temper. Yeah. The only person who can possibly think that any of her little whiny tantrums resemble a Mediterranean temper is someone who has no connection to any Mediterranean family, any Mediterranean background. They probably never even went for a 1-week holiday on a Greek island. So the blurb on the back also bothered me. I borrowed this one on the strength of the blurb, not on the strength of the cover, which is disappointing. It mentions the journey to Italy and the fact that Lainey's marriage is going through a hard patch, but it makes it sound as though the trip to Italy and discovering her roots is the focus of the novel. And that is really, really incorrect. So once again, was it low budget? Did they employ someone who hadn't bothered to read any of the book? Because we don't even get to Italy until page 200, and when most of the book is about Lainey and how she deals with her life and her kids. And her daughter, who is 16 and about to have sex for the first time, is a subplot. And her son, I think it's, her son. One of her sons? One cardboard cut out young male is going through a rebellious patch. How terrible. Who could imagine that? And in those entire 200 pages before we get to Italy, nothing at all happens. I mean, who wants to read about some white picket fence white housewife driving her kids to school? It's bizarre. Now, another big problem for me about this novel was the tell not show style of writing, and that always bothers me. You can't tell me someone is a Italian fiery temperament and then for 200 pages show me a whiny, whingy little limp dishcloth. You've told me something, now show me. You're an author, you write. That is what you get paid for, so write the things. I mean, tell not show can sometimes work, but it only works if the novel is heavily character driven. You can have a lot of character and then you tell things, you don't show them. Never mind. Anyway, in this one it doesn't work. So as a doormat, Lainey is a well enough written character, but she's not fiery, she has no temper that I ever see, apologises for existence every 5 seconds, gets bullied regularly by the nasty parcel of kids that the author has bothered to give her. She has no spine. I mean, Amphioxus had more spine than her. Google Amphioxus, by the way. Amazing story. Quite liking Lainey is all very well, but it's still not the story that I thought I was getting. And the same is with the kids, and the same is with the husband, and the same is with everything. You get told one thing by the author, you get shown something else by the book you're reading, and it's really annoying. 400 pages worth of annoying, mind you. Now, spoilers. If you think you might read this travesty, or if you read it 2 days ago and have already forgotten it but think you might want to read it again, stop now. Go away. Watch another review. The whole focus of this novel, the real plot, Italy is completely coincidental, by the way, is that Lainey discovers her husband is cheating on her. He's going to the other woman. He has another 16-year-old daughter with her. Drama! Whoa! Misery, misery, misery! Great chorus howling in the background. Violins wailing in that one. Except it's idiotic. It's utterly idiotic. He tried to tell her what was happening around page 60, and Lainey wouldn't listen to a word. So she is entirely making her own misery on this one. And it's really hard to have any sympathy when we, the readers, know perfectly well there's a reasonable explanation, which her husband was trying to tell her already. When it is entirely clear that had she listened to her husband at all, she would have known the reasonable explanation. When it is depressingly obvious that the end of the novel is going to be a vanilla, finally she realises what the actual problem is that he was trying to tell her. Is this hysterical whining meant to be an example of Mediterranean temper? Lois? I don't think you got it there. I really don't. Honestly, around about now, I was thinking this woman seriously needs to go to her doctor and have her hormones levels checked. Because if hormone levels go out of balance, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they can all be really, really harsh. If their hormone levels are out of balance, you can end up with someone who behaves hysterically for no reason. You can end up with someone who cries when they see a display of penguins in a store because the penguins are so lonely. You can end up, if you put in an implant on that constantly releases hormones, you can have people apparently ready for a psych ward, and it's actually just hormone imbalance. And I very much suspect that Lainey, if she's based on a real character, is based on a real character that really needs to go to the doctor and really needs to get her hormone levels checked. Right. So her poor husband tries to make her listen to him all through the novel. She never does. She stays hysterical and miserable. And right at the end, she finally listens for some reason that I've forgotten. She goes, "Oh, okay then. Everything is fine now. Let's go off and be civilized." I mean, that's even less believable than the notion that an otherwise normal woman, after living 16 years with this man, 16 years of apparently happy marriage, trusts hubby, loves hubby, all of a sudden goes off the rails and is sure he's cheating because he tells her something that she won't let him finish talking about. I mean, is that reasonable? I don't live that life. Does anyone live that life? Okay, so, her older stepson, not an actual son, her elder stepson is being a pain. The resolution is she whines at him in the car a little bit, then gives him a hug, and all of a sudden he breaks down and is normal being again and loves her and his family and is happy staying in. And that sounds like every rebellious teenager you ever met, doesn't it? Okay, the 16-year-old daughter's theme of falling in love and having sex for the first time and regrets. I actually thought that was one of the better parts of the story. There are some pretty strong themes here for older women who have teenagers and discovering sex, which is tough for parents. This probably plays to their worst fears, however. So, while the theme was good, and at times the two main teenage girls who are involved in it could be believable, especially at the beginning of the novel. The bad girl friend trope who's encouraging the main good girl to do the wrong thing was increasingly stereotypical. The mother's attitude to the teenage behaviour is just unlikely, I feel. My main problem with this subplot was that after the resolution, Tierney, the daughter, is suddenly a good little girl again, happy to serve drinks and trot around serving old guests and apparently regressing to childhood behaviour and in speech patterns. And this was not convincing at all, and it was kind of cringeworthy. You have a teenager who's reached the stage of maturity that they're going off and having their own life and they're having sex. Do you want them to regress to childhood? I don't think that's a good expectation on your part if it is. Surely you want them to continue on, to continue being adults. Maybe they need to be a bit more discriminating about their sexual partners or their life, but you don't want them to turn back into a 7-year-old. I hope you don't. Oh yes, there was another kid, a little boy. I knew there was something else. Standard cardboard cutout, plot advancement stuff with no reality. I don't even know what his name was. Not only do I not remember it now, I didn't remember it by the end of the book. It was so unreal. Maybe if you personally have little boys and you read that one, you can flesh out the details in your own head, but I don't. I need the author to do that. That's why I read a book, and she didn't. Discovery of Lainey's family history in Italy is unexcitably lukewarm at best. She finds some stuff, lets her fears run away from her in horror as she imagines her background inside her head based on a couple of hints. Does this a bit our Lainey, doesn't she? Then finds it sad but not bad and sort of gives up and doesn't take it to any kind of conclusion because we're too busy having Lainey's big reconciliation with hubby, which she had to go to Italy and find out that her mother's mother once had an affair for. I mean, whatever it was. I can't even remember what it was. The whole point of this novel, as described on the cover, is just ditched without explanation. Why do that to me? It's pathetic. Then we're back in England. Lainey meets the other woman who's a right bitch to her, causing Lainey to like and befriend her because, of course, isn't that how most of us would respond to some hag insulting and berating us after our husband had just helped her through chemo? I mean, of course. The other daughter is accepted into the now magically happy family, and there's a completely happy vanilla ending with no drama or confrontation at all in everyone's life, which is just perfect. Now, painful in the extreme, but possibly enjoyable to people who love happy endings at the expense of writing, plot, characters, common sense. Despite everything critical that I've said, and obviously I didn't like it overall, during the actual reading it wasn't entirely unenjoyable. I did occasionally snort at how idiotic the characters were being. I did occasionally roll my eyes at how inconsistent the author was being, but I had no particular intention of putting it down, and it had many good points. Descriptions of Italy were nice, as were the descriptions of their life in England, which was far more alien to my way of life than Italy sounded. The secondary plots of the daughter and Italy mitigated the endless imaginary moanings and miseries that Lainey was piling on herself, and though I don't love novels about kids, this one did all right. So a good enough book if you like mainstream fiction about mainstream housewives with hormone imbalances, annoying kids, and threats to marriage that are overcome. Violins are going again. To bring you to a vanilla, all strings tied, happy ending. Artificial vanilla, by the way. Not the real orchid bean style flavour, which is amazing. Sometimes I conclude that I should stay away from mainstream fiction, stick to sci-fi, fantasy, the good stuff. But I do actually enjoy reading it to a certain definition of enjoying it. Some of the books are great. I should search out one of those reviews and do that as well. The real problem with this one, I think, was the 400 pages. The 400 pages and the lack of characterization. The fact that the cover of the book lied to me about what was in it, that's not uncommon. The fact that what was in it wasn't terrible, was just kind of meh. I mean, hopefully this review is out there. It'll remind me next time I think I want to read Susan Lewis. And hopefully in 5 years, when I see The Truth About You, I will also see this video and I won't borrow it again.